Come along, and we are live. And a very good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Lyceum nights, coming to you live from Poole. Hello. Great delight. Our guest this week is lovely Chris Jacobs, who's joining us from Lincolnshire. And another gentleman just suddenly turned up because food suddenly appeared. And I don't know, it's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times. You go, food, 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 and suddenly Mark appears. So we've got the lovely Mark joining us as well tonight. So very good evening to everybody watching us, whether you're watching us live tonight or later on Catch Up. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we were talking about what we're going to talk about, and I still haven't made my mind up. But Chris, could you give a little bit of background about you, please?
Oh dear, my God. I've been around for just 1 or 2 years now. I've met a few illustrious people, as my friend here on my right. We know the same circle of people. And we were just talking about some of the antics they used to get up early on. And I think for me, as a medium that's been around, digressing about me, was I think we miss those kind of characters. Those characters aren't around anymore. Do you think the same, Ron?
I do. I do think we've become a bit aseptic and very flat. And it is almost like if you've got a personality, it's sort of like sneered upon rather than celebrated.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, really, when we think of people like Glyn, Gordon, and all of those, they knew how to hold the audience, didn't they?
Oh,
they really, because of that character that they had, that they could really engage. That really you wanted to sit up and listen. You know, and what a shame we don't have that anymore. Present company accepted.
I think you know it's the stories that you hear and the experiences, and I think that's the nice thing with mediums when we get together, in the most part, is when we're actually sharing experiences of who we've known and what we've sat with, and the fun things and the silly things, as well as the serious and spiritual. And I think that's the lovely thing. I think that's what we miss sometimes in our movement, is that separation and isolation of working and doing your own thing all the time and forgetting about, you know, touching base with the people that we've gone through those wonderful experiences with.
Exactly. And also I think as well, you know, sometimes though we in danger, we put them on a pedestal, you know, and they become these wonderful, wonderful people. Did they get it wrong? Of course, I saw them drop many a clanger. Yeah. You know.
Thank you for using the word clanger.
But that made it all part of it, because they were human.
Absolutely.
I mean, we both knew Glyn, and he was well known for dropping a clanger or two, you know, but that was part of the appeal.
Yeah.
Right?
I think people being who they are, I think that's one of the biggest things, is that, you know, it's not always necessarily a created persona, but, you know, especially when we go back, a lot of people, this is how I am, this is how I am, this is what I do, and this is how I engage with you, and you like it or you lump it. Rather than trying to be all things to all people.
Exactly.
You know, which I don't think works. You know, we can't be everybody's cup of tea.
No.
I always say, if you try and be everything to everybody, you end up being nothing to anyone.
Or to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a really good topic. Thank you, Mark. Because this has been, my head has been struggling with something of late. And it's about the development of the spiritual development of the medium.
Yeah.
Because I feel that's an area you know, and including us at Poole, I've been looking at our program, what we've done in the past, and looking at the program for coming up. And I'm like, is there too much emphasis on the mechanics of mediumship? This is how you make a link. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. But we're neglecting the medium.
And the psychology of the medium and what it does to us being in a spiritual environment.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we want to go here at Poole next year, is bring that in more and more, because I like my allegories, because I'm very simple. And I said, well, mediumship is a faculty, and it's just the same as learning to drive a car.
Mhm.
So if you extend that thought, so if you can drive a car, you can then drive a bus. If you're driving a bus, you actually then need to go on courses to learn how to manage the passengers as well. And this is what I'm seeing in our up and coming mediumship development. There's all the emphasis on, no, you do this to make up, you do that to make a link. But what about, and I mean, it can be really profound effects upon the student, especially in, I mean, our healing circle. We meet every other week. And a lot of the time we are there just sharing stories, not saying, well, how great a healer I am, but actually talking about our highs, our lows, the thing, especially within healing.
Yeah.
Because the more you heal, the more the stuff gets dredged up from the past.
Same with the sitting for the power, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I'm just to say, I've got all this thought going around. I can't quite get it cohesive yet, but it will come.
If we don't do that, I think we're in danger of it all becoming a competition.
Oh, absolutely.
And it isn't.
Who's the best? Who can be the best?
Yeah, and I got this and I got that. Wow.
And I think, and we need to talk to students about, the self-healing and also things like spiritual bypassing, where rather than deal with our own stuff, we're going to solve everybody else's problem. But all my stuff, I'm just going to keep in that box over there. We're not going to talk about all of those issues I've got. And actually, people going on that spiritual high because I'm a great medium and people tell them I'm a great healer and I'm a great this. I then feel like a good person, but I've not dealt with the monster in the closet here that needs to be dealt with. And at some point, that's got to come out. And often that's crisis point for a lot of mediums or healers or readers because they've been focusing on everybody else and not looking at self.
Well, you see, don't you? I mean, I've heard it a lot lately where I need to take a break now. I need to come from that. Well, if you're working from that power of love and inclusivity, why do you need to take a break? Yes, that means telling to me straight away, you haven't dealt with your problem. You haven't dealt with fundamentally who you are.
Or your focus has changed.
Yes.
And you're no longer doing it from the point that you were doing it originally that gave you the motivation and the joy. I always say to people, what is it that makes your heart sing? And if something about your spiritual work doesn't make your heart sing, then let's listen. Let's look at what's going on with you. Let's look at where you're viewing everything from, or are you taking everybody else's opinion of you on board rather than actually self-validating and being in the right space for you? Exactly. And but a lot of people don't know about that and just think that it's the spirit world pushing me away, or maybe I'm not meant to be doing this. And then it becomes this big drama, as you say, like, I'm going to step away, I've got to do it. Where, we all have moments where we have to refocus and reassess. That's part of the journey of life.
This comes into play with what we were talking about earlier on about the circle. There isn't the drive that, I've missed it because I want to go for a meal, like you were saying. There isn't that impetus that, I need a circle. I look forward to it. Yeah. I want to be there because this is who I am fundamentally.
Yeah, it's that commitment to self as well as to spirit. And, about learning about the self and about the psychology and the effect. And the effect of when you're dealing with other people a lot and other people's sensitivity. We all talk about, we're all sensitive, but actually it's also about how we are responding, not just to the spirit world, but to other people in our movement and how they're affecting us, their behavior, their manner. As you say, don't put them on a pedestal, because we always learn that at some point that person falls off of that and then we're disillusioned. Well, if we just accepted they are who they are and they're a medium or a healer, then we wouldn't necessarily be putting them up there and shouldn't put ourselves into that position either with anyone else. Because again, when all eyes are on you, then you're under that great amount of pressure again.
Yeah. I mean, 'cause it's not easy. I still feel uncomfortable today. I'm sure you're the same. Standing up there and all these eyes are looking at me. And I'm thinking, gosh, do I look big in this? Or is my tie right? Or, is my hair right? All of these things. And
did I do me flies up again? But it's so true. I had one of a medium say to me about 6 months ago, well, I'm only ever happy when I'm up working on platform. And I was just like, that set off alarm bells in me. That really did, because I'm thinking, so why aren't you happy
in the rest of life?
Yeah, with everything else in your world. What is being pushed aside? What is not being acknowledged? What is not being dealt with?
Yeah.
Yes, all
Yes.
right.
You can't help others if you can't help yourself.
Absolutely. And I think it's that going through that process is challenging, you know, when you start to realize that you've got to deal with your own issues, you've got to deal with your own problems. Because what I've found, I don't know about if you found this as well, both of you, but if I've got an issue and I'm not dealing with it, it comes up in people I'm then working with. So my buttons and my triggers are still fired off by the people that are coming around me. So I can't ignore the stuff I've been sweeping under the carpet, because now it's sat in a chair across from me, or I'm working with them.
Yeah.
So I can't avoid it. I've got to go into it, and I've got to work with it.
Basic psychology tells you that most people are a mirror for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The thing we find hardest to deal with is in other people is because that's in us.
Yeah.
And we've not resolved it. Yeah, how true. So, oh, that's interesting.
Oh, isn't it deep?
Oh,
Straight
yes.
into deepness.
I know, straight in the deep end. So, quick hello to everybody. Lovely Ashley. Hello, darling. Chris and Marion. Welcome, welcome. Numbers are down tonight. There must be some football or something going on, or barbecues. I don't blame you, because it's first day of summer. So, yeah,
Don't you think
God
it's the
for
wind blowing in the wrong direction?
Could be. I came in on an umbrella this evening as it is.
Or as we hear in our churches, oh, it's too light or too dark or too cold or too wet or too dry or too hot, too cold.
I'll call the midwife's son again.
Yeah.
So that's it.
When we're looking at attendances in churches, and I've said to my people here, please don't do this. Please stop doing this, because I find it intensely irritating. You know, if in my honest opinion, and without causing offence, if I'm going to, if you continue to have very low attendances, it's very easy to come up with it's too hot, too cold, too dark, too light, but whatever. But actually, when's the point going to come where you're going to actually examine what you're offering?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had that discussion, didn't we, a while ago, that a lot of people were saying, oh, well, since COVID. And I said, well, quite a lot of the churches that I've seen that have said we've struggled since COVID, if we look in all honesty, some of the time we can go back before COVID and still find they were struggling.
Yeah.
It's just become the next excuse. And that doesn't mean it's not a justifiable excuse, because it hit every church throughout the whole country really hard. But, you know, it's about how do you come through it again? A personal challenge. How do you come through it? How do you deal with it? You know, how do you move into something better?
I think the last 20 years have been very hard on churches. I mean, I remember the 90s as a young man, and I used to go into the church and it was rammed.
Yeah. Didn't get there by
Absolutely
6, you
rammed.
didn't get a seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. We've got several churches in the area. That was very prevalent. You know, they'd have 2 services on the Sunday because of the numbers. Or, if you're not there by 6 o'clock, you just didn't get in. And people accepted that.
Yeah.
I mean, we had an instance here many years ago now with a certain very tall medium. And we filled up, and there was people turning up and saying, sorry, we're full. And they were getting like really aggressive. And I'm saying to these people, this is a church. What, just get a grip.
Yeah.
Seriously, get a grip. What's wrong with you? But yeah, the lovely Jean Bassett. I know I go on about Jean Bassett, but I just admire everything I read and see and hear from her. Just endorses, and I'm like, oh God, I really missed out on. I would have loved to sat down with her. No. No, but I would love to have sat down and listened to her. But she was saying, and she said about the rallies that used to go on, where you would fill the Albert Hall. And that is a fact. There are photos of it. There is recorded evidence. And it wasn't all, 24-hour non-stop mediumship. It was philosophy. It was healing. It was evidential medium. It was trance. It was everything. And she said, people said, we used to fill that place. Where have they gone? And she said, but I don't think they've gone anywhere. I think we've stopped giving them something to listen to.
Absolutely.
And I was just like...
And also reaching out. You know, we were chatting about this beforehand, that I think that those days of the 90s, I think the churches and generally spiritualism became maybe a bit complacent, was that we always had all these people coming to us. And yet now there are a lot of people who go past, when I'm describing this church and other churches where they are, people are, oh, is that what that building is? That they know the building, but they don't know anything about what goes on inside.
Yeah.
And I think there comes a point, especially with, you know, we're online tonight, that there needs to be more and more reaching out to bring people in. I know some people can't get to where we are physically, but they join us here. But I think there needs to be more of that with a lot of churches, not just saying, well, we'll just put up a poster and hope they'll come in, but actually start moving out into the community more and actually being more of a presence.
And I find that approach quite irritating, because you hear this line, how do we get more people to come in? I personally find that a little arrogant. Come to me. Get off your arse and go out and meet them.
It's to build it and they shall come. You've still got to let people know it's there.
Yeah.
What do you have to offer them?
Exactly.
Make it appealing.
Topless services. Topless services.
Please no, Lawrence.
Will we all get to a certain age where it doesn't really need to be seen?
It's you're bringing up memories of old Frankie Howard when he did the we welcome the people from the local nudist colony to tonight's service. That's what you put me in mind of there. It's not a good look.
It isn't.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen at home.
Yeah.
We digress.
We can assure you absolutely no alcohol has been consumed. It is just the spirits.
The levity. The levity.
Oh, the levity. So, we've got a few comments here. Sorry, I'm a little bit cack-handed now with
That's
this. Chris Archibald. Chris, he's got a lovely dog. I think people and mediums think spirit are going to fix it all, but the truth is it won't, and we have to look at it for ourselves. Yeah. A number of times I hear people say, oh, spirit will do that for us. And I'm going, really? Okay, can I buy tickets? I want to watch this.
It's something we were talking about again earlier, where we were talking about that. What's the true message of spirit? You know, what is that true message? It isn't help us, you know, get through our daily lives. It's to help us live.
Yeah.
Well, spiritualism to me isn't about death; it's about life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't get. I struggle at times with people just failing to make that connection. You know, every time we do a service, every time we demonstrate our mediumship, and there's plenty of mediums in lovely Leslie Thomas, and every message to me is a complete and utter miracle.
It's awesome.
Because we've gone through that process of saying goodbye to them, of letting go, of going through the whole grief cycle. And then one day we're able to talk to them again. And I'm like, as miracles go,
pretty big.
I'm finding this really difficult to beat. I seriously am.
You've said it, you've really hit the nail on the head, because, you know, where is the miracle in mediumship now? Where is it? Where's it gone?
Do you think people have become so used to mediumship, not necessarily spiritualism, but mediumship, that it's become commonplace in their mind?
Yeah. Well, you get those, give me a message. Yeah,
a message and a plate of fish and chips on the side.
Yeah.
And, you know, the awesomeness of what's there. And I think that idea of the spirit world doing everything for you, I always say to my students, you know, every week I just sit there and say to the spirit world, you know, if I just could win 1 million on the lottery, just one,
just
not
one.
greedy,
Yeah, I'm the same.
and just 1 million, and then the same answer from my guide would come back each week. Go halfway and at least buy a ticket. And it's that idea that it's not just asking the other world to do it. If we're not going to participate in the action of change and transformation ourselves, you know, you can go out and buy a bottle of diet pills or health pills, but if they're left on a shelf, you can't turn around and say, well, do you know what? Nothing's changed since I bought those pills if you're not going to take them. You're not going to do.
That's what's gone wrong.
Yeah, there you go. That's the reason.
Bugger.
That's why your cupboard's so full, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do we share the same spirit, guy? Because Mike said you first got to take a step.
There you go. That's the same. Buy the ticket. Buy the ticket.
Yeah. Susan Anderson, good evening all. Heard recently that the hardest people to deal with are the
Various versions of ourselves.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we see something in other people, the thing is to recognise it, isn't it? Because we can I got very hung up with two people that I was dealing with, and it was really bugging me. They were constantly in my thoughts, and I'm like, why can't I shift these two people? Anyway, I had a message. Somebody brought through somebody and a different facet of that somebody that a lot of people acknowledge.
Yeah.
And afterwards I went, that's what it is. That's why I got stuck. And when I realised that and understood it, that was it. Bingo, banga, bunga, and they're gone out of my life. Happy days. Yeah.
You got the point.
Yeah.
The trouble is with us, well, we tend to always look at what we were instead of what we are.
Yeah.
You know, and I think also we don't allow ourselves that expansion to grow sometimes. And, you know, the beauty of getting older is hopefully that we learn. We've learned from our past experiences, and that is what we are about. And it's the same with the mediumship. I look back to my old mediumship and I think, good God, please, you know, take that memory away, erase it. You know? So it's not just in life; it is in all aspects.
And I think you have to sort of realise that a lot of people, if we're not, and we can do this ourselves, we can get caught up in the story of what was, rather than focusing on what we're going to create and where we're going to go with what we're doing. And, you know, it's a bit like when people go, oh, well, you hear everyone talking about the halcyon days of mediumship, the golden age, which we'll never have again. And you know, we do often do that. However, are we going to make that the inspiration for going forward? Or are we just going to say, well, it's gone and it's never going to come back? Well, then we're the ones who are holding that. And either if we've said it's gone and it's never coming back, then we're not going to aspire to be that.
I've got a question for you. So what do you want? Where do you want to go with your mediumship?
Well, indeed, that's the question, isn't it?
And second one, why aren't you?
It's interesting.
Keep watching, folks. We're going to have a fight in a minute.
You have to be the vehicle in which to allow that change to come. And the thought comes with you and it ends with you.
Absolutely.
Spirit inspire you, they'll do the rest. But the thought is yours.
Absolutely.
You know, and are you going to be that person that actually
inspires
spirit?
Yeah.
Because make no bones about it, I don't think we do enough to inspire the spirit world.
No.
And if I was a spirit coming back and looking at me and is that what you've given me to work with?
But you know, when I look at that and I look at things, I was going to that space of everything will open up and unfold. These are the things that I would like to nurture within, but I'm then open to also the guidance that then comes in on top of that. So that when things are presented and opportunities do come, I actually look at them and go, okay, what do you feel about this? How do we feel as a team? Because I always think of mediumship as being a team. Yeah. I don't think of it as just my mediumship. You know, it's when it's on a platform. If it wasn't for the other world, I'd be standing there doing very little. And so there's a lot of times when I put it and say, okay, if this is where do we want to go with this? What do we want to do? And then I have little conversations in my head or out loud because I live on my own, so I can do that without anyone going, you're talking to me. Yeah. And often there are things that, you know, I've sort of turned and said, well, okay, is it about time this happened? And then the opportunities start presenting themselves in different manners. And I go, okay, that's where we're going. That's what we're doing.
I'm going to make you laugh here because we were talking about the philosophy early on. And I said to my guide, and his answer was absolutely priceless. When I said, I'd really like to really expand with my philosophy, but I hate reading. So he just said, we're on a platform with no train that's ever going to come then, aren't we? So it took a while for it to sink in. But,
although you can get a lot of philosophy on Audible now, so you don't have to read your canvas.
Oh, this is back in the Stone Age.
Or TikTok.
Bite-sized philosophy.
Oh, you've that. Oh, now there you are.
There
New
you are.
concept.
Yeah.
New concept, bite-sized philosophy.
You
But I think there's a need. I think the philosophy side. I mean, this is something we always go on about people being great with philosophy. But I think it's how we get people to understand that philosophy isn't like going to do a degree in philosophy. That philosophy is the love of knowledge, the love of learning, the love of life. And so therefore, trying to get people to realize that their experience in their unfoldment and in their life is part of that philosophy. It's their philosophy of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And trying to get people to realize that you're not just there to recount 7 principles or just to be very static in what philosophy is something that, you know, we can move with very, very easily. And I think that's the key is to get people to realize it's not about whether you've been educated well or whether you're very knowledgeable or how many books you've read or what you haven't read, because you can sit and move into that power and be inspired.
Yeah.
And ask. And I used to, you know, there was a lot of times in my development where I wasn't under the tutelage of another medium or a circle. And so I would sit with a notepad and pen and I'd ask a question and then I'd write everything that would come into my head. And then when I got to a point where there was nothing really left, then more would come. And the second lot of stuff that would come was fascinating because it was so different to my thinking. And that's how I started to I used to ask hundreds of questions. I've got tons of these notepads with spider writing in it going, what have I written there? But that's how I started to ask to be educated by the spirit world. I still read, but I didn't always have people I could ask questions of. You know, sometimes in the churches I'd ask questions and I'd be told, well, that's how it's always been. So when I'd ask why, I'd have no response. So I'd have to go to the spirit world and say, why does this happen?
Do you think with the church's point of view that they weren't educated?
Possibly
They
not.
aren't.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
that's a serious lacking
In the knowledge, yeah.
Exactly. You know, it's a shame such a dying art, really.
Well, let's hope it's not, because it rests with us.
It does.
Yes.
And
very
others.
Much. Very much. But this is true, you know, we create. I love your saying, you know, where thought flows, energy follows. And it is so true. And we are, you know, as working mediums, I keep telling people off for this, they come off the platform and go, oh, well, I didn't do that bit really good. And I didn't do that bit really good. And I missed that. And you're like, will you stop finding fault? I had a thing when I was in business. I said, anybody coming into my department, if you find one thing wrong, you've also got to say one thing right about it.
That's good.
And it used to really bug people. And I went, I don't care. Because you know what a little tit I can be.
The beauty of being in charge.
Is that how you kept your office quiet for so long?
Yeah. We went totally bankrupt, never sold a thing. But it was so peaceful. Anyway.
But it is the positivity going in. You know, you hear people, I tell students off sometimes because you get this, they're going to do partner work. And the one person goes, now, before I start this, I'm not really very good at this. And it probably won't work. And you probably won't.
Yeah.
And I said, stop what you're doing. You're setting the energy before you start working. Rather than going, I'm about to connect to the spirit world and meet some fascinating people. And have a lot of work if it's not going to be right. You know, it's the biggest joke in spiritualism. Is there anybody there? There's more people there than here.
Yeah.
But they always start the conversation. I don't really, you know, all of these negatives.
Well, what if the spirit world don't turn up for a demonstration?
Well, then you learn a song and dance and get on with it.
Or you've just suddenly realised that they have TV and football in the spirit world. I've known that. I've never known a demonstration where the other world don't know what they're doing.
No.
We might not know what we're doing as the intermediaries, but the other world, I've always found, in all cases, have always had it in hand.
Yeah.
I don't think the spirit would have ever let me down in any platform work.
No.
Having said that, now I'll probably fall flat on my back.
Yeah. Watch live tomorrow morning, folks, 11 o'clock. But yeah, because we do limit ourselves. I've done a lot of reading lately, and one thing that really leapt out to me is the standards of mediumship of yesteryear. People were walking into churches totally unknown, unknown to anybody in the church, first time ever. And they were greeted by name by the medium and said, could you sit down, please? Because XYZ, the names. And I sat there thinking, why do we not get that today? And looking more into it, and I'm guilty of it as well, we tend to chicken out. One of my ladies in one of the development groups, she went, I've got your cousin, brother, friend, neighbour. Yeah, you could see
the minute the mind came.
Yeah, you could see the minute the mind came in, going, "Ooh, don't say that!" Oh, neighbour, friend, somebody you saw down the road once, worked on the ice. Yeah. So that is something I will be working with my mediumship, and if I get it wrong, guess what?
It's okay.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
Don't you think getting wrong is all part of the journey? I love it when I got it wrong, because at least then it's when I'm going to remember it. I'm going to stick with it.
And how do you get around it? And how do you find what it was if you haven't got it quite right?
Yeah.
And this whole concept of right and wrong, we haven't got the result that we wish for, doesn't mean it's wrong.
Oh God, I can remember years ago I had a sitting with a friend of my mum's, and this lady came in for this sitting, and all the information started to take me to where I was born, in Blackpool. And she said, no, my family are from Yorkshire, they're not from Lancashire. And I said, well, I'm being shown Blackpool and the Esplanade. And I said, and I'm being taken to a lady and described this lady. And she said, no, that doesn't mean that. I said, and this is an aunt. No, it doesn't mean anything. Then the name of the road my grandparents lived on came up, and I saw this house and described this house. And she said, no, none of this makes sense at all. And in the end, we abandoned the sitting. I said, look, I'm really, really sorry. I don't know why this is all turned around to showing things about my family, and you can't understand it, and you didn't even go to Blackpool or even on a jolly. So I said, we'll leave it. And a year later, she said to my mum, can you apologise to Mark? Because when I went with my partner, who his family were from Lancashire and Sheffield and wherever, we were talking about family, and his aunt lived in Blackpool and lived off the road that my grandparents lived on. So to all intents and purposes at the time, sitting didn't work. But actually, a year later, she found the evidence that it had.
That shows the intelligence of spirit.
Totally.
And we don't credit spirit with that intelligence, do we? Really, which is a crying shame.
I just went out of that and went, well, that didn't work. Oh, well. Doesn't stop you, but you just have to question. You go, I wonder what was going on there. But a year later, we find out. You can't then stop all your mediumship because something didn't work once. You have to keep working through to push yourself in different ways, getting out of the comfort zone. The comfort zone is not a good place to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes in circles, that becomes a comfort zone, doesn't it?
Yes.
And then when you go out into the world with Joe Public, it's a whole different ballgame. And that if they've got to keep moving and not go, oh, God, this is too much and shrink back. Look at what the experience was, look at what went on. And, and I think this is where, do you think tough circle leaders used to have a good part to play in really making people push beyond the comfort zone?
Exactly. I don't think there was any tougher than mine. And she, quite honestly, and never, we mentioned this, never wanted to verbally give me praise, but I respected her.
Yeah.
And I respect her. And I just don't think there's that kind of relationship anymore in circles, or very few, shall I say. I mean,
going back to when we're talking about in the 90s and before, you used to have certain people in the church who'd sit there, maybe with their walking stick in hand, and they'd block your pathway or to people and go, you shouldn't be on the platform, you should be in a circle. Now, if you did that to anyone now on a platform, you'd be pilloried for upsetting them and hurting their feelings or whatever.
Yeah.
Because, people get pushed up, I think, sometimes too soon under their own volition or by a circle leader who wants people out there. And, I've always said to students, you tell me when you think you're ready and let's see. I want you to really feel it. I'm not going to tell you should be up there doing it because it's your journey and not mine. But I want you to realise that you're the one that's got to do that push forward. If you want it and you're ready to move forward, let's then see. and see how it goes. Let's go to a few open platforms or open circles where you don't know everyone, and see how you get on in that environment, because you get too used to being able to be good in a circle because you've sat with them for God knows how long, and you know everybody's ins and outs.
Yeah. I prefer going to a church where I know nobody.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My biggest fear is knowing people in the thing.
Yeah.
You know, that, oh my God, what do I know about them and what do I don't know about them?
Yeah.
You know, but I remember a little while ago, I had a student a few years ago now, and I remember, nice guy, a lovely fella. And he said, right, I'm working with you this year, by the end of the year, I'm going to be on the platform and I'll be doing this, that, blah, blah, blah. And I just don't know. Good, I'm so pleased for you. Can I book your first front row? I'll book the front row and I'll be sitting there waiting for you, you know, because he got the idea that you just give one message.
And that's
I
it.
said,
You've
you've now got to do that message that evening, you know, another 9, 10, 11, 12, and more times. Repeat that.
Yeah.
And the sort of like the industry standard for our services, the divine services, seems to be in general an hour and 20 minutes. And out of that hour and 20 minutes, the chairperson probably only takes 10 minutes. And the medium is responsible for an hour and 10. That's the prayers, that's the reading, that's the philosophy, that's the evidential, the close. And that's a lot of work. And people, you know, they go, oh, yeah, I can do a message. Yeah, well, what about all this other stuff? Which you've got to, you know, I've had it here. People have said, oh, can I, you know, what do you think about booking me? I don't do prayers and I don't do readings. And I'm like, well, you don't do a church service then.
Absolutely.
Sorry, you've got to demonstrate all the facets.
Yeah, can't pick and choose.
Yeah, I just want to do a message. 9 times out of 10, unfortunately, people who come in on that energy are the ones that will be reverting to a lot of psychic work as well. Because they haven't gone into the depth of it and the you know, the majesty of what we do.
They don't seem to realise that, do they, when they dip into that psychic bit and then how to get back out of it.
Yeah. Or even that they've dipped into it. I think that's the problem, that in some respects, a lot of people will teach that anything you perceive must be the spirit world, and not everything you perceive is the spirit world.
Yeah.
It's the incarnate spirit, but not the discarnate. But trying to get people to understand the difference and work with the difference, because a lot of times people just focus on developing mediumship, whereas developing good psychic skills and awareness is key, because we do use them. We use them in our everyday life. We use them in our demonstrations. We use them in our teaching. We use them in healing. And it's how we apply them. And when we know the point is when we use that and how we use it and why we use it, not just avoid the psychic like the plague and just focus on your mediumship. Because how do you know when you're going into something else?
Is that the P word? The
dirty word. It's not a dirty word.
Out.
It's a fabulous. I'd rather go to a damn good psychic than a mediocre medium.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
because I you know, if I'm just going to be told, "Oh, your nan loves you and well done," that's told me nothing. I knew that. But if someone then works with my energy and tells me and points out the things that maybe I'm ignoring or not focusing on, it's going to do me a lot more good.
Yeah. I'd say in almost, listen, if you're going to be psychic, be a good psychic and be an honest psychic. If you're going to be a medium, be a good medium and be an honest medium. All right, but know where you're working. I said, if I were to put on an evening with a psychic, I would advertise it as a psychic night. That's what I would expect. And you know, God knows this world needs so much help at the moment, and good psychics are capable of giving huge amounts of support and help to people to unravel. But it's just being honest about it, being open about it, and knowing what you're doing. But also from the sitters, we're going to start running courses for sitters.
And congregations.
Yes, and congregations.
Yeah, we don't teach our sitters, do we?
No, and this is sad. This is really sad.
I think this is where churches centres have an opportunity to educate. And, you know, I mean, I have to say some of them weren't particularly great, because, I mean, some was what to expect in a message, and it was a flaming tick box list of what was a good message and what wasn't. But if you look at if you look at what you can get a sitter to understand about going for a private sitting or coming into a church for a demonstration, how to be in that energy, how to be in a good space, when you're working, the better it comes. We've got a message up on there.
Oh, it's Moira. Oh, hello, Moira.
Hello, Moira. She was listening. But if you read the energy, things not talking. Sorry, can somebody else see that?
So if you read the energy, that's not talking to spirit. Well, it's connecting to a person's spirit in the body, but not the spirit world. Spirit can bring more information. Yes, they can. Just depends. Depends on the individual that we're talking to in the spirit world as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some people in the spirit world still hold opinions.
Of course they do. Well, that's who they were.
Oh.
They're going to come back as who they were, not somebody they are now.
Yeah.
You wouldn't recognise them.
Fluffy.
Yeah.
I've got your father here. What a nice man. No, he was a complete alcoholic, murdering swine. That's putting it politely.
But it's different. I think it's different things within what we're working with. And there's all different ways. Everything is energy and everything is connected. If we really want to separate it all out, we tend to want to separate it out to try and make it more, this is this, this is that. Every time we put anything in a box to do with mediumship in the spirit world, it comes out of the box, all messy. So it's only understanding certain ways of working, certain ways of contacting, stepping into the energy, working with the power, working with, I mean, I can remember going back when people used to laugh at people talking about animal communication. And yet those of us that have had animals in our lives and have been brought up with spirit know that the same ability that you have as working with a human psychically works with working with an animal psychically.
Yeah.
The fact there isn't a physical language, but you can still perceive the emotions, the experiences, the memories, but loads of people used to laugh and joke about that. And at the college, I can remember people taking the rise out of people for it. And now there are courses that get run there on
animal communication. Correct.
So it's now become more accepted as time's gone on that everything is interconnected, and shamanic practices as well, working with the spirit of nature and the land and the spirit of place. And, there's all sorts of, spiritualism isn't the only way.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about anything new because when we look to our past and our history, this is how it was. We lived in harmony with it. We understood it. We've moved away from us. It's our fault. We've moved away from it.
Yeah. There is no limitation. I can also remember people, one of the things that Glyn had asked at the spirit world at one point, and the spirit world turned to him and said, it is you who puts a ball and chain around our ankle and restricts us. And it's true. So yes, Maura, we can limit them incredibly through our own mind, what we do and don't think can happen. There is no limitation on what can happen.
I think the trouble is we learn not to listen.
Mm.
And I think that's our biggest problem. Even as mediums with the spirit world, we just put everything into these little compartments, into tiny boxes, because that's what we understand. And we don't listen to the rest of it.
Yeah.
We just focus on what we want to hear, what we think is right for us. There used to be the old saying, and I think we should get it back, don't tell me what I need. Tell me, don't tell me what I want. Tell me what I need.
Absolutely.
And we need more of that.
Would you, what do you think about the thought of, because this is part and parcel what's been knocking around recently, that we as mediums, we are actually trying to direct the communication. So, you're my communicator from the spirit world. So as a medium, I'm going to, well, what's your name? What's your age? Where did you live? What's your wife's name? What did you do for a job? What were your hobbies? So we're actually directing the conversation. Whereas if we actually just go, "Hi, mate, you all right? I'm Laurie. Yeah, you can shake my hand. I'm Laurie. Come on."
Yeah, we do. I think we've forgotten to. We so focus on trying to direct spirit that, it is a conversation, but allow the spirit world to start the conversation.
Yeah, and lead it. That's
and then we can start asking the question, about, I'm grandmother. then we can say, oh, which side were you from? Which side of the family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, let them start, let them lead. We follow, but yet remember that we're still in this. And I think this is something I've been having with my students, is I didn't know I can ask questions. It's called a spirit for conversation. What part of that do you not understand?
Yeah. I mean, we've had this year, we spent 6 to 8 weeks in a circle talking about just having conversations with the spirit world. So we're going to put aside this idea that you've got to get loads and loads of bits of evidence and who they are and how they died and when they died and all that sort of thing.
It's just facts.
And I said, I want you just to have a conversation. And I just want you to treat it as if you roll up at a bus stop and someone sat next to you. And I said, I don't want you to visualize that. I said, I just want you to sit. And when someone comes and say, oh, hello, now what do you want to tell me? What do you feel? What do you sense? Then move into the feelings of all of it.
Yeah.
And as you go, what will happen is, just like in a good conversation, you start unearthing lovely bits. Like earlier when we were talking and you were saying, oh, and I sat with them and I did that. I was like, oh my God, what an amazing conversation. And that's what you'll have with the spirit world. But I can remember in very early days when it was being taught, like what I used to call CV of the dead. How old were they? How tall were they? What colour was their hair? What colour was their eyes? And it was like, it was just factual.
How many people in the street do you do that to that you know?
Exactly.
You know,
you don't. And you don't start a conversation going, so how old are you? And what job do you do? And what have you done today? And what's your inside leg measurement?
By the way, how are you?
Yeah. And not, but we go, what kind of day have you had? How are you? What are you doing? Where are you going?
See, we've got to let the spirit tell their story, tell it in the way they want to tell it. You know, but we've got to be adept enough to be part of that conversation. You know, because we're not mindless fools, just like the spirit world.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's intelligence, and it goes both ways.
Yeah.
It's like Maura says there. She says, "Let the spirit tell their story," and
exactly.
that's what we need to do more of.
Yeah, I think people are too worried about being accurate as a medium rather than being the voice for the other world.
Yeah,
which is a very different thing. You know, because a lot of people want to get it right, and it's either right or it's wrong. We talked about this. I don't know if it was just in the discussion now or earlier. But there is this thing that, you know, you are going to learn things the hard way sometimes, and sometimes other things come through the remarkableness of when you're suddenly having a conversation with the other world for someone, and then stuff comes out, and you go, and even in that moment, you go, oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's where that awesomeness, and you go, that's amazing. And it's not like, aren't I amazing, but isn't that amazing, the experience of what you've just been shown or told? And the other person says, absolutely, yes, that's right. And that's the lovely thing that then gives you the message and the information that comes within the whole of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we do still hold a lot of fear. Because another common one is, oh, I can't come to you, Mark, you're a medium.
Oh, I know you.
Yeah, I know you. You know, you've lived how many years? Well, over 30.
50 next month.
Oh my God!
I know.
Oh, big birthday party!
Big birthday, not big birthday party.
Oh no, we're going to have a big party.
So Maura,
if you're lucky, we might invite you.
Maura says evidence comes with the story, surely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. But I think also we have to. What we're trying to say, Maura, I think, is we have to participate within that, you know, that conversation, that story, to actually help the spirit give that evidence. Because I don't know, with some people, you know, if it's like me, I don't naturally volunteer everything. And I'm sure I'm not going to do that in the spirit world.
I'm an oversharer. So somebody's going to hate it when I come through as a message. They'll be like, yeah, you need to wrap it up now. You shouldn't have been talking. But it is the personality and the nature, you know. And I think I try to get people to realise the fact that the body's no longer there, the personality, the nature, everything of that person still is. So don't treat it like it's something to be feared if I'm going to get it wrong. We have conversations all the time where we don't get the right end of the stick.
Yeah.
And so therefore, when we're working...
Lawrence, I'm cold.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Don't really want to tell them that. You brought it up.
Yeah, no, I'm putting it back to bed again.
But, you know, you sometimes... I can remember I was doing a demonstration with Mickey, and I had this guy, and I could hear, clear as a bell in my head, this very strong accent saying, I'm Fallon. And I said, I've got a man here whose surname is Fallon. So someone here would recognise the name Fallon. And so I described to him, Nobody would accept her. Then I went to someone and I said, would you understand this, man? She said, and I kept saying, but would you understand this? I'm Fallon. And she was like, I don't understand. I don't know the name of Fallon. And then I went back and I said, well, this woman doesn't understand this, that your name's Fallon. And he said, it's clear as a bell, I heard, not Fallon, I've fallen. So I wasn't listening clear enough. I heard him as I'm Fallon. She said, he did fall. He just dropped dead. I've fallen. And I'm like, oh. And she said, but he did have a very strong accent, so you forgive him.
Oh, I have to remember that one. That's quite funny. I didn't know you could be so humorous.
Oh, well, you know, one of my many traits. Yeah. Not a good one, though.
I mean, all in all, I think the outlook is pretty good. I'm seeing some people who are currently working and some of the up and comings, and I'm excited. I really am excited. There's a few people in particular that I'm just like, wow, your work is amazing. And that is so good to see, because, you know, we can be a negative bunch.
Yeah.
You know, oh, we're not getting the mediumship of the part. Why?
Or are you going out and looking for any of it?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't go, and I love going and watching other mediums work. I love it. And I love seeing how people work. And, you know, when it's good, I love to go and say to people, you know, I really enjoyed that. It was really good.
Yeah.
And we don't always get that. You know, people recognise you and then you disappeared after. Why did they disappear? Was it no good? Was it?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, actually, why can't we be giving praise? And
this fear factor, you know, people see another medium out in the congregation, they just think, what are they doing here? And they're sort of like free. These are people exactly the same as the people sat next to them. There's no, you know, so they're a medium.
But I get that. Whenever I get messages, people go, oh, God, it's you. And I'm like, oh, thanks then.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm great. I know loads of dead people. I'll say yes to anything.
Yeah. Not just in the medium.
How dare you?
Do you think as well it's down to people like us as well? Because you just said something of interest. I'm excited. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Do you think there's people like us who are teaching and we're not excited? We're not. So we're not putting that across to the students?
I think how you are, your nature and your being, this we talked about a little bit earlier, didn't we? Is that going back to the characters, is that ability to excite and enjoy and get people in with us.
Yeah.
And I get really excited about things, even if there are things, and I'll say to people, well, go and find out. Because I don't know whether you get questions like this. Someone goes, oh, I've seen such and such a workshop. Do you think I'll get anything out of it? I said, I don't know. You'll have to go along and then come back and tell me. You know, and look at different things and be challenged. I mean, there's nothing wrong in being challenged in our thinking. There's nothing wrong in being challenged in our belief. But I find it exciting watching other people work. I don't sit there thinking, oh, God, I love it.
Well, I always say I'm not the one size fits all T-shirt. You know, so you've got to have the experience of others, because
absolutely,
you know, you'll take snippets from me, snippets from them, and then you'll form your own opinion, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
You know, because that will lead to the inspiration.
Again, we're back to that. Don't put people on the pedestal. And you know, and sometimes it's that, again, part of that personal development, to realise that there are some people in some situations which are not going to be right for us. And that's okay. That's not a problem at all. You know, and somebody may or may not be the right teacher for you, or vice versa, the right student for you. And that's okay, you know, and it shouldn't be, you know, this pressure. You know, we haven't got a magic wand that we're going to wave over someone and suddenly transform them. You know, that's their work that they're going to do with their spirit team.
Yes.
If they put in the effort, and if that's the way they're meant to go.
Most definitely. I'd agree with that.
But I love mediumship. Well, the minute I get talking about it, I can't shut up, which is Lawrence knows. I know, it's funny, isn't it?
I want to know that.
I'll do a lock-in. I'll be the Ken Dodd of mediumship. Just leave the keys. I'll close up when I've finished.
Somebody out there, help me. Get me out of there.
Oh, poor Chris.
No, just going back to what you said there, Chris, about the teacher. I love it when you see your student or someone in your circle, whatever, and you see that, you see the get it. That's great, because you know it's not being got. So you put it another way, and then you put it another way, and then you put it another way, and then suddenly, oh yeah, oh great, now we're cooking.
Yeah.
That is so good.
I'm a firm believer you can't teach anybody anything, but you can help them learn.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I'd say anybody entering any of the development groups here, I can teach you mechanics, but I can't teach you to be a spiritual person. You've got to develop that, and you've got to develop that yourself. There's not many things I say you've got to. But I just say, if you wish to follow this path, you have got to develop your spiritual side. Without that, it's a little bit like a drum without a drumstick. It just doesn't work.
But that's why maybe we've fallen short. You were talking about this earlier about what we offer. I mean, in the way that I work with students, we take them, no matter what the level of experience, we take them from ground up to say, let's look at you. Let's look at how you think about things, what your beliefs are. Because if we haven't got the mind right, once we start sitting and working, the mind is going to lead. And if the mind is full of fear, or the mind has got all sorts of ideas and preconceived ideas that's going on, it's then going to come out in the mediumship.
Yeah.
We had a lady many years ago who sat in an open circle, and it didn't matter what meditation we did, the meditation ended in trauma. She was in the middle of a road accident, or she was in the middle of this going on or that going on. So one day I thought, I'll take them to a nice, peaceful, quiet desert island where nothing can possibly interfere. And as we went round the group, and all the group used to wait for this lady's description, and she said, and I said, and how did you get on? And she said, it was lovely until the plane crashed into the middle of the island, and everyone knew. And afterwards, and I sort of said to her, can I talk to you privately after? I said, how do you view the world? What do you think the world's like? She said, the world's a terrible place full of terrible people and terrible things. And I said, well, until that mindset changes, I don't think this is right for you at the moment. I want you to start looking at where there's joy in life and where there's good things, because the mind was leading the experience that every beautiful experience would
end up in disaster.
Tragedy and disaster.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about earlier. We can't be just spiritual at the weekend.
Yeah, the 90-minute spiritualist.
Yeah, you've got to live it and incorporate in all the facets of your life
as best we can.
Nobody says you're going to be perfect. You're going to trip up. God knows I trip up all the time. But at least I'm acknowledging it now.
Well, now you tell me. I wouldn't have booked you to tell me that before. Too late there. Anybody free tomorrow? 11 to 12. We only pay expenses.
Keeping me hostage.
And a slice of quiche.
Yeah.
Half a tomato in the salad leaf.
Oh, God, don't. And Kipling's apple pie. That's always broken on top. When Marjorie put a thumb through it.
Oh, here we go. What's this?
The non-mediums, they won't understand any of that.
I'm excited as next year I'm wanting to bring like-minded people together. I'm going to do a spiritual retreat in the north of the UK. Are we invited? Hey, Chris? You guys are just mentioning how much more people need to develop and be offered different subjects.
Yeah.
Quite agree.
Yeah.
So what are you going to be offering them?
Indeed.
What is
Type in, Chris.
Yeah. What is the foundations for everybody's mediumship? What's one crucial foundation?
Well, you do one first.
For me, first and foremost, to be of service.
For me, it starts, I think, with self-healing. Work on self. Work on what's going on within you. And then the more that you work on that, the more you can be of service to people.
Yeah.
I think, it's basically the same thing being service to me.
Well, I wasn't highfalutin as you two. I just said the most fundamental thing for a medium is the self.
Yeah.
And do you know a really good question is to ask your circle? And I just did it, and I thought, oh, this is really interesting. What's your perception of God? That was fascinating. That was eyes wide open. I was like, really? Okay.
It's an interesting topic, how it affects people differently, positive and negative ways.
Yeah. It was absolutely fascinating. And it gave great insight to everybody's developmental path. It really did. I was just like, wow, that is really
so many different ideas and concepts, isn't there, really?
And not anyone is particularly right nor wrong. It's just what's been experienced by the individual and understanding how it shapes you. Because for some people, God has a very negative connotation because of how they were brought up or how it's been used. And I mean, I always say to students when they come on a course, you know, you see a lot of people that says, I believe in the spirit world, but I'm not sure I believe in God. And for me, I say, well, that's like saying I believe in the lamp and I believe in the light bulb, but I'm not sure if I believe in electricity. Now, I can't tell you what electricity particularly is. Okay, scientists out there will be able to tell me exactly, but I know that it works, even though I can't see it. But when it touches me or I touch it, I definitely know I've touched it. But that's the thing. It's that power that moves and touches you, however you perceive it to be. I like yours when you say a God of your understanding.
Yeah,
I like that expression.
It is.
Yeah. I'll say to people, listen, I don't care if you think that the universe is run by a giant tree frog. The fact of believing in something opens doors to other avenues. If you sit there in total disbelief, there is nothing. That's all you're going to find.
I must have been one of those weirdo children because I never ever could ever get to the concept of God as a person. God was somebody who moved me.
That's nice.
And that's always my perception that I've had.
A bit like
that power that moves me. Sorry?
A bit like Pickford.
Can you Pickford please send in their check for
yes. Today's Lyceum presented by
sponsored by next week sponsored by Durex. Go along, that'll be fun.
Oh, please don't. Somebody save me.
I do apologise, anybody under 21. Mark said it. Anyway.
Next week we'll all be on grounding and protection then.
But also,
next week we'll all be on Crime Watch.
For those of you out there, listen to laughter.
The joy.
And that's what medium should be. We still should have a life.
Absolutely.
Fun and joy and bring into it instead of it being all dour.
Going back to those memories of sitting with other mediums, the stories, the things they'd say, and the laughter. I mean, sometimes the greatest learning was never during the lesson. No, it was sitting chatting to the mediums up when they were sat there indoors with a cigarette in hand and a coffee in the other. And then out would come all the stories. Yeah. And you just learn and know so much just from that. And I always remember a friend of mine said, just listen.
Yeah.
When you're with these people, just listen. Don't keep chipping in and doing your thing. Just listen to what they have to say.
Yeah.
And I and I love that. And just listen. I sat when Glyn had Eric Hatton come down for the day. And we just sat and just spellbound listening to Eric talk.
Very knowledgeable man.
Oh, amazing.
I tell you what, my eyes were certainly opened by after hours with Jill Harland and the things she used to get up to. Oh my God.
Oh, she was brilliant.
She was such fun. She had more she had to drink than man. Gosh, the loudest she telling all the secrets. But my God, the fun and the laughter.
That's what we
want.
And
I think we miss that now. I'm sure it's still out there.
Oh, it is.
It is. But I think it's this is where we had this conversation sort of with the lockdown and things about time for mediums to support each other. And Glyn and I started doing some retreats with working mediums, not paid for retreats, just hiring a venue. And then we just went and all stayed there so that we could chat and discuss and sit. And I think there needs to be, because once you start getting out there and are working, you'll tend to be working on everybody else and trying to support everybody else. And I think we forget that there's actually a core need for mediums to connect without it being necessarily, I'm going to show you, I'm going to teach you, but actually just to connect and enjoy, which, like these evenings and things are lovely because, we can have a laugh, we can share experiences. But actually, we sometimes need more of that just for our own soul, more than anything else.
Just the thought has come in, and it never occurred to me before. Evenings like this, we each mutually respect each other's
opinion.
Not only opinion, but their sound as a mediumship. I'm not sat here thinking, I want to be as good as Mark, or you really dropped one last week. Ho ho ho. We know over time. We've built up this professional, and we are a profession. People say, oh, no, we shouldn't be professional. I'm sorry, you go out, you spend money on your development. What's the definition of a professional?
You spend money in your training and your
Exactly.
travel and your
I think I
wear.
could be a millionaire now with the amount of money. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
But we are a profession, and
Mm.
having that mutual respect for each
Mm.
other, you know, and so if we're not coming in on an angle of trying to get one over all
No.
the time, we're not coming in on any angle, any negative
Mm.
side. It's like, yeah, you know what it's like.
Mm.
You know what it's like dealing with students. You know what it's like when they're going for our development. You know what it's like some of the circle of Margaret Clawton. God, she was a nightmare at times, but she taught me so much.
Yeah.
And some of the stories, because they're talking then about, you know, the mediums of that generation, and they had a great camaraderie.
Mm.
You know, they would sit with each other regularly.
Mm.
They would take great pride in their students.
Yeah.
If one medium was taking her students out to work, all the other mediums would be there, not to criticize,
But to support.
but to see and support and go, oh, actually, yeah, I quite like that. And she would never go in, oh, I like that, I'm going to have her in my circle. You know, it would be all about the greater good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
There was a lot more encouragement then, wasn't there?
Mm.
mm,
I think there was a, you know, when you see commitment from others, you wish to commit equally.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, you know, there are people, we were talking about this, who you may not have contact with before, and then all of a sudden they get in connection again with you, and they're going through something, but you know that that's your time to share and be of service.
Yeah.
And you know, and there's a lot of, you know, when COVID hit, we talked about this before, but I had a lot of mediums messaging me and phoning me saying, I really don't know what's going on. I don't know how I feel about my mediumship. And it was kind of having to go almost into pastoral care mode of supporting what people were going through. And sort of saying to people, well, what is it that motivates you? What is it that moves you? What is it that makes your soul sing? You know, I feel lost. Okay, so if you feel lost, let's just stop for a moment and think about, what do you really want in life?
Mm.
What do you really want for you, for your family, for your health, for your well-being, whatever it may be, for your spiritual work? What is it you really want? And, you know, if something's putting you off, are you letting something or someone put you off, which means you're giving them too much importance and too much room in your head, rent-free?
Mm.
And maybe that's what you've got to change. And, you know, and there was a lot of that. And that's where I think when you know that people are giving and then they're struggling, that's where you then want to be even more of service and support.
Yeah.
You know, to encourage, as you said, to encourage, not to take the decision from them, but always to be given that support and encouragement of a fellow medium.
Do you think sometimes that we place too much importance on what we want to be, our idea of what we should be? Depends on where that's come from. Exactly.
If you feel drawn to it like a vocation, but if you get drawn to it and thinking I'm going to be a celeb, that's a different.
Or putting your yard,
slippery slope, aren't you, really?
Putting your yardstick up against other people and going, you know, I want to be like that and I want to be like that, and you're just paving the way for a fool.
Yeah.
Be what you are, you know,
Absolutely.
and celebrate what you are.
Yeah. And you can't, you know, if you try to be someone else, you're going to be a poor copy of them, and you're not going to be you. And, you know, you were born an original, don't die a copy.
Yeah.
Because I say, don't be me, be better.
Yeah.
I want you to be better.
And again, you know, someone can inspire you.
Yes.
And, you know, that when you see someone demonstrate and they do something, you think, oh, that's really good. I've gone away and I've said to the other world, you know, let's have a bit of that. Should we ever work on that?
Yeah.
And because that's what, you know, the spirit will like, come on, let's see if we can do this. Let's see if we can look at that and be inspired by. Don't go, well, I'll never be as good as.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what we do, comparison. Oh, I'm not as good as them.
I'm ever going to measure up to that. Oh, no, I surrender. Yeah.
No, just go, do you know what? If they can, I can. But, you know, you might be looking at someone on a platform and think, oh, well, I'll get there in a couple of months. That might take them 20 years to get there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not overnight. Nothing's going to be just a wave of a wand. And I think that's where commitment and the sense of vocation, rather than necessarily just things are a bit of a hobby dip my toe in and
Well, it's
out.
like that when they say, we quite often hear it, I want to be like so and so and so. I'm not going to mention the name,
No,
but there's one that's bandied around often. I want to be like that. So my answer is, go away and why don't you? You know, be like that, try like that. But tell me first, how are you going to get there? What do you do to start that process off, and how we can sustain that and grow with that?
Yeah.
You know, oh, I hadn't thought of that.
And also,
it doesn't come out of thin air.
No, and look at, when I know people, read about the mediums of the past, study about people that you admire and that you look at and that are there and how their experience, because in reading about their experience, you're going to learn about how and why things came to them in that way. It's, like when you say, oh, well, mediums used to give names and addresses. Well, there's that lovely with Albert Best, he used to give the names and address of a person. But in his daily life, he'd been a postman. So every day he was reading names and addresses. So that was always in the forefront of his mind.
Yeah.
So it's the easiest thing in the world for the spirit world to work with.
Yeah.
If you're musical, you might get stuff in song. And that might be the way that you get those lovely messages that start, whatever it is. But it's recognizing there's always a uniqueness in mediumship. If mediumship becomes the same, either for you as the individual, if every message was the same, God, how boring it would be.
Of course, yeah.
No two messages, even if you have the same person again in another experience, another time, it's a different experience, isn't it?
It's
never the same.
No, it isn't.
So it's never boring.
No.
Shouldn't be.
And I think, you can give the same message to somebody twice, but 6 months apart, and it's going to be totally different because you've learned a lot.
Yeah.
You've experienced much
Different
more.
side.
Your understanding of that experience has become so great, much greater.
Absolutely.
And we've got to understand that. We essentially, through our readings, our messages, we're actually telling part of our own story. But how you put it across, how you deliver that,
the memories and the
with
experience.
but in the context of the spirit communicator, not in yours. Take
Absolutely.
the I out of it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Stop banging the table,
right.
you? Hello.
What was that?
Are you playing with your thing?
Yeah, we keep banging the table, and I'm going to say,
Have a bit of-
Not with the tech on it.
Yeah.
Not with the tech on it.
Chris Archibald there is just saying about commitment with students, but you use a phraseology there, Chris. Students should be taught commitment. I don't know why that's not sitting with me.
Well, you can be told how important it is.
You can be told, but you can't.
I mean, I have to say, we were talking about circles back in the day, and we used to have it. If your circle started at 7:30 and you arrived at 7:31, you walked home because the door was locked at 7:30. And I used to very much, when I used to have my circle sitting for me, that was the understanding. The latest person to get there would be 7:20. If you got there between 20 past and 30:30, is okay. You got there after 30:30. Well, sorry, we've started.
Yeah, you had it easier than me because if the circle started at 7:30, you were expected by 7.
There you are.
I had that recently with a circle here, and the person was really sort of like miffed. And I said, we sit at 7:30. I was only a couple of minutes late. I said, a couple of minutes, couple of hours. You were late. You missed it. If this was a train, you would have been waving goodbye to it on the platform.
Again, that would demonstrate the commitment.
Absolutely.
You can learn a lot by that person.
Yeah, that's where my little head's going with this, because it's not just the commitment side; it's the discipline.
Yes.
That's where my mind was going with that.
Yeah.
Because I often say to people, I think I've already said this, about I can teach you the mechanics, but I can't teach you the disciplines, because you've got to have that. You've got to exhibit that yourself, or have that potential for unfoldment there. But if you haven't, we all know certain people that 7:30 means 8:45, things like that. And you just say, no.
It's down to how bad, I think as well, you've got to look at it and say, how bad do you want it?
Why do you want it?
Well, why, really?
Yeah. Why do you want it? Why do you want to be a medium?
And how bad, I mean, sometimes people want it too much, which then creates the pressure of time. rather than the dedication of. I mean, if we go back to the old circles originally, it was a case of, well, there was very little else to do in life apart from the pub and the radio. So, you know, but now we have all this stimulus of TV and radio and, you know, your mobile phones, you know, people constantly. So there's loads of things that can keep you occupied.
Yeah.
Now, there's, as you said, you know, Coronation Street's on and that's it, they're off.
Yeah.
So, you know, there isn't necessarily that same discipline, or there's what is perceived as enough time. But actually, if you stripped out a lot of the stuff that we do with technology, we'd have a lot of time.
So
But we
survey
feel
says you can't go 5 minutes without looking at your screen,
Mhm.
your mobile, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that's not a good endowment, is it really?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree with you, Moira, on a lot of cases. When I said people don't seem to have the commitment. I think people are fascinated by mediumship, but I don't think they realise the commitment that goes behind achieving it and working with it to the extent.
Yeah.
They might start with the intention, because we all have good intentions.
Dip the toe in the waters.
Yeah.
They love that thrill of the validation from somebody. You know, your mother's in spirit. Yes. Oh,
That's it.
you know, and it's like, yeah, okay. Now let's hear about the mother. Lovely Leslie Thomas. Snap Lorry. I gave that same question about God to my fledglings as homework last circle. Very interesting evening with words of truth and enlightenment. Also with the laughter which raised my energies. Thank you, Laurie Chrisham.
Oh, bless you, listening.
See your last on the list. I'm sure.
I'm next to the emojis.
I'm sure that doesn't mean anything, does it, Leslie?
Let's not have the competition there, love. Loving you, babes.
Lovely Moira. People don't seem to have the commitment these days. Yeah, but it's a very busy world. We're not in the world of 40 years ago.
And unfortunately, that's something you just can't teach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
And do you think as well, probably we've still got the same number of committed people, but we've got a lot of other people that are just interested. Which would?
Yeah.
But I think
I know a lot of committed mediums.
But I wonder if what we're actually seeing is, because of our experience, when we were committed, we saw a lot of people that were very committed around us. And I think that, again, maybe this is where the movement has changed in how it draws people in or what it offers, is that people don't understand and don't understand necessarily spiritualism. They might understand about mediumship, but not necessarily consider themselves a spiritualist. You know, I mean, even Glyn, bless him, used to say, I don't consider myself a spiritualist because it's too confining. And, you know, for me, I'm a born and bred spiritualist because that was how I was brought up. So for me, it's always about what the commitment to spirit is. Oh, we've got another one, lovely.
Yeah. I also believe that when in the silence of meditation, to have a conversation, to build on the relationship with your guide, as they are too important for yourself, soul growth, and the way you serve spirit. And if you make an appointment with spirit, you honour it. That's commitment. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely true.
Totally.
Absolutely true.
Every time you take a booking, you're making that appointment.
This was something I was having a conversation, not with you guys, but with somebody else. And I go, is that we don't.
You talk to other people?
I do, believe it or not.
You never knew that.
I know.
You talk to other people.
Is that we don't actually build a relationship with spirit.
Yeah, not like, no.
You know, we forget that there's something else. You know, they're not real people or whatever it is. You know, we don't build that relationship. You know, and
that's, I think, is one of the lovely things that those who we do work with, we can have that relationship that's almost like a family member, or more so probably, within the relationship of who we work with. And I find it. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way to people who don't know who works with them, but I think it's sad if you don't know who the other people are there working with you and taking the time to know who's there behind you and supporting. Okay, it may be a process of years to discover it, but actually when you start to have those connections and the feelings and the presence of those people, and you know that should anything hit the fan, you can sit and talk to the other world and know that you're being heard by people that care for you.
Yes.
And I think that's important, especially if you don't have anyone else that you necessarily know who you can ask.
Yeah.
Then at least you know you can ask them.
I think sometimes people don't take the time to feel the love of the spirit world. When it's touch and it's true love, my God, it's an emotional thing.
Oh, crikey!
It really is. I mean, Maura's put there. I don't think it's a movement. It's people, which is true. I sat in circle every week for 22 years. My friends and family know that you don't ask me anything. I mean, I do. And Moira, as you know, I sat in my circle with the late great Elsie, and that was 20 odd years. And as I was saying to you, I never missed it, except for the one time I had an operation. But I was there the week after I'd come out of hospital, and I was there. And it was something it wasn't just expected. You were excited to do it. You wanted to do it. You know, it was the highlight of my life.
Absolutely. Most part, I don't understand that. I know the energy, but not the personality. But that's okay if that's how it works for you. I'm not saying everybody should, but I feel, from my own experience, that the people that I know and speak to in the spirit world, that I know them, and I feel that they're that close. But that might not be everyone's experience. I'm not saying it should be, but I think that sometimes, I think that if there isn't, you say you feel the personality, or you know the energy. Well, within the energy is everything of everything. Yeah. Personality, experience, memory, knowledge, etc. So it's how we connect to it, how we perceive it in that way. But it's a lot of people go, oh well, I've heard people say, I don't have any guides, I just do all this work on my own. and because there's not that, or this is my guide or that's my guide. And without actually just thinking, do we spend time, as you said, in the presence of?
Yes.
There are certain people in the spirit world I only know as a feeling or as a symbol, Moira, but there are other people I know their life story.
Yeah.
And I know about them, and I know about their experience of life. Not all of them, but
something sat with me when I was young, believe it or not, once. All those years ago, and I was one of those I wanted to know. Everybody's got a Chinese guide or Red Indian guide. Who are you? What's your name?
Yeah.
What did you do? And I was feeling really peeved off because I was never getting that.
Yeah.
And then my spirit guide said to me, and I remember it here, and it's clear as day, and that's when I gave up that day afterward. He said, know me by my presence, not by my name. Because any one person can fool you by my name, but they can't fool you by my presence.
Yeah. I know the trance workers, that's all. Well, if that's one of your main areas, that's the people to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the one that's important to you.
My doorkeeper, I've had some amazing revelations from him, Manny. One day he appeared. I knew it was him, but it wasn't him. And I'm like, right, I'm really confused. I know it's you, but it's not you. What is going on? And he said, I had to go into another incarnation to be able to help you better this time. And I thought, that is really fascinating. And then another time, without any asking or anything, he was just there, and he went and rolled his sleeve up. He's Jewish guy. Rolled and showed the tattoos off of the camp. And I went, oh my God, this whole new level of him suddenly. And that was just so out of the blue and so random. I was just like, wow.
It is. And I think, the spirit world also will show themselves in a form, or we've clothed them in a form that's acceptable to us.
Yeah.
So, when you look in, say, heavily Catholic countries, lots of people see the Virgin Mary and angels. So that's where they feel that the spirit world is. If you couldn't trust a person as far as you could throw them, it's not going to be unheard of that your guide's going to come through as an animal, because you trust animals more than people.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, that how you know and how you feel is different for everyone. It's about the needs for the individual.
I had that conversation with mine. Because I kept getting these different people, like at the stage when everybody was going through change and all this change. And I noticed at certain stages in my life when I was most vulnerable, that would change. And when I had this conversation, I asked, who were these people? And he said, who did you feel it was?
Mm.
And I said, I think in knowing now it was you.
Mm.
And so I said, why did you do that? And this is the love of the Spirit. He said, I did what you needed at the time.
Absolutely.
I did for you, and such is my
Mm.
love for you.
Yeah.
That I gave you exactly what you needed at that time.
Beautiful.
And I think that's the beauty of it. You know, it's not important that we really know the ins and outs of our guidance.
It's a relationship, though, isn't it?
It is. That's because of our. I was just going to say that's because of our human vulnerability. You know, that we need to know a person. We need to see the face, as it were, to trust.
Yeah.
You know, and that says something about us. You know, I think I'm a fairly trusting guy. But then when I look at it in retrospect and think, well, how much did I trust?
I think it's the same. It's whenever you're working with something, you know, it's asking. I'm someone who always liked to ask why. Ever since a kid, why? So at church,
You're that one in the back of the car. Are we there?
No, I'm not. And are we there yet? No, I quite enjoy a long journey, but I always ask why. And if I got the answer, well, we've always done it that way, that's not an acceptable answer because that doesn't explain why. That's just telling us why it's done that way. And with the trance stuff and the mediumship stuff, I'd always say, okay, well, I need to be sure, which again you saying. And so I always ask when I've been working to get this level of bring proof. And I mean, one of my guides and helpers gave me information. I went away and found him on an electoral roll. I was so chuffed. But he then said, but you'll also find a book with my photo in and da. And I've never gone looking for that because there's a part of me that's gone, if that book's meant to turn up, it'll turn up one day. It'll jump off a shelf at me or whatever. But, you know, for me, I've only had that experience with that one where it's been, here you go, if you really want proof, you can go and find me.
Yeah.
But, you know, that isn't necessarily what everyone needs. But I think for me, there was a part of saying, I want to know that this is a distinctly different personality. It's not just a creation of my own facet of my own mind.
Yeah.
But so I do think there is an element of that within us, you know, because let's not forget it does come through our imagination and through our minds. So there is going to be that little bit of an imprint in there, that crossover. But we've got to learn to know ourselves so implicitly that we can identify that. And I think we don't.
Yeah. Well, that's going back to that honesty.
Is this my alter ego, or is this actually the voice of spirit?
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, where we have to look honestly. I mean, when you think about people like Eileen Garrett, who tested a lot of her mediumship and was always putting a question mark over it. Now, it doesn't mean being doubtful, but actually looking at all the possibilities around what's capable and what's possible. And I can always remember with Colin Fry, he used to say, even in the complete unconscious state in a physical seance, the mind of the medium can still influence the phenomena. Because
where's it gone? Otherwise, you're still there. The only time your mind's not there, I usually say, if that's the level of mediumship you want, you're going to be dead because your mind is going to be there.
Through as the guide.
You know, because we were talking about this earlier with the trance, and a lot of people want. There are quite a number out there on the trance because they think it mitigates any blame on them, or I didn't say it.
In the eyes of the law, you are
exactly, exactly. You know,
but you know, it's again that when we look at going back and you look at different experiences, and I think this is where you have to, as you say, you have to sit with different people, sit and have different experiences, so that you know what it is for you, and you can't always stop someone from going and experiencing the difficult things because you know that's part of what they've got to go through, you know. And
welcome to life.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I think that's in the same in all areas of our unfoldment, personal development, and just life.
Yeah,
you know, we have to experience the good, the bad, and the indifferent.
Well, look at it on a fundamental level. As mediums, how do we express the pain of loss to anyone if we haven't gone through it?
Absolutely.
You know, how can we be an effective medium without actually going to it? And I think a lot of us mediums, me included, went through horrible childhoods or horrible younger lives. We had all this pain and suffering, you know, but it's what you did with it.
Yeah.
And how then you express that, and that, because I think that helps making you be more empathic with people, you get an understanding.
Yeah.
You know.
Because that's quite an interesting concept. So you go through that period of life, and we tend to look at it as, oh, well, that would have been the doorway to open up your spirituality. Equally, it could have been the doorway to open up to turn you into a really horrible, nasty, vicious person.
Exactly.
But we
how you
made
handled
that
it.
choice. Exactly.
I don't think for me, it was never the doorway to open it. I was going to come and be me whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But that experience taught me a lot, and it was what I chose to do with that experience. I could either let myself become the victim, or I could let myself become the conqueror.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anyway, thank you, gentlemen.
That
was wonderful. Thank you, everybody who's watching. Don't forget, you can see Mr. Jacobs working tomorrow, live online at 11 o'clock BST. That'll be on the church Facebook page or our YouTube channel. So it's available to watch live, or you can watch later on catch up, which will be absolutely wonderful. Next Saturday, we have Jason Goldsworthy from Germany, and he'll be talking about the movement of spiritualism. Now, I know where we're going with that, so it's going to be really interesting because we're going to question the word movement. So, so we're looking forward to an evening with Jason next week. His movements. Yes, indeed. Shut up.
Sorry, Jason.
He's not. He's really not Jason. Listen, cackling away like a witch of the West. Anyway, Mark, thank you. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody, and thank you for watching.
And hope you enjoyed it. This is all back to front here for some reason.